Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Destiny I Process live Google Hangout. We are continuing with our series about Destiny, the Destiny I Process courses, and the tools and the principles that we apply on a daily basis within the Destiny group. In this specific Hangout, we're taking on a topic that is one of the most basic foundations within the Destiny materials, the principles, and the tools, which is writing, and how you can utilize writing to free yourself from all the inner madness that is going on in our minds. And to talk about this today, I have invited Eleonora Gosini from Italy. Hi, Eleonora.
Hi, Anna.
Hi. And so we are going to be discussing this topic and how and why writing is so important, and exactly how we're using writing also within Destiny. You're welcome to ask questions throughout the Hangout, and we will do our best to give perspectives as we go. So, Eleonora, as I was saying, writing in the Destiny material and in the Destiny group is one of the most fundamental and important points. Can you expand a little bit on why is it that writing is so important or so powerful for self-change?
I can share my experience about writing. So when I first discovered Destiny, I was abroad. I was stuck in a country from which I couldn't get out because I had some trouble with a visa on my passport. I was addicted to pot. And my life was absolutely not working. So when I found Destiny, I joined the forum and I started to write. And I found that writing was very cathartic for me. It was literally like taking all the confusion that was in my mind and placing it on paper. So through an act of will, releasing myself from what was going on in my mind. So I would say that the main reason why writing is so important is because before you can change, you have to find a way to empty yourself of what you have been, what you have believed, what you have attached a value to, and then replace what you release with a new value system that now you decide for yourself in awareness.
That's a really cool point, because in a way we could say that we have already been written, by all the words and everything that, everything that we've studied in school is a way of being written. It's been written into us. And so through taking the tool of the pen or the keyboard, we can rewrite ourselves, literally.
Yes, I agree.
So what is so different about the way that we write within Destiny and other ways of writing, like writing a journal or, writing an essay, for example?
This I cannot say, Anna, because I don't have terms of comparison in my life about writing in another way. I know that writing in many other therapies is considered very helpful. I have read that people who have been writing books found a great relief from their writing. My guess would be that there is one step missing in maybe other ways of writing, is that you only do the emptying of yourself onto paper, but you don't do the rewriting of yourself, because we never understood that we could in fact do that. So I would say that the main difference is that the tools that are offered in Destiny, they teach you, hey, look, it's not just about emptying yourself and becoming an empty vessel. It's about who would you like to be? Why don't you write for yourself that script of who would you like to be, and just walk the new script for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was writing a journal from when I was maybe 8 years old until I was probably 16 or 17. And in addition to what you were saying, something that I also see, for example, within journaling and in therapeutic writing, is that it's all about getting it out of your system, which is an important step. But what I was writing when I was doing my journal was I was validating and confirming my own emotions, for example. So I was writing, that guy was such an asshole, and he did this to me, and he did that to me. So basically, I was lying to myself, and I was confirming my own lies, and it was all, from within this self-interest perspective in my mind. So yes, I did get it out of my system, but it didn't change. It didn't change
Yes.
anything. So within this, can you give an example of how it is, like the structure of how we write at Destiny to actually write ourselves to self-honesty, that it's not just venting your opinions and beliefs, but that you actually take that next step of adding self-realization?
Again, I can give an example from my own experience. I found that the turning point for myself was when I realized that nothing in any way whatsoever that I ever felt or thought was ever about somebody else. So that for me was a major turning point, was when I realized that I had the ability to write taking responsibility for my own thoughts and emotions and feelings and experience. So this, I would say, is if I could give an advice to somebody, is get this point as soon as possible so you don't waste too much time. So the structure would be, you do the emptying through self-forgiveness, and then you do the self-corrective application, which means you write for yourself a new script, and then you commit yourself to stick to that script. So these would be the 3 basic steps of structure writing, as Destiny suggests, that you can try out for yourself.
Yes, and we will be discussing specifically self-forgiveness and self-corrective statements next Thursday. So we're not going to go too much into that here now, but merely to lay out the structure. And then I would also say, as you're saying, that the major difference is to the change in your starting point when you're writing, that the decision to sit down and write is not, now I'm just going to get all of this out, but that I'm here to face myself. I'm here to face myself in self-honesty and to take responsibility for who I am. So that when I'm writing about an event that happened in my life, I'm doing it from that perspective that you were saying, that it's about me.
Yes.
Yeah, and it might sound quite simple, but that is actually where the self-empowerment comes in, because that is what can enable you to actually change.
Yes.
So within your process of when you started writing and you were able to get all your chaos out on paper, did you experience any challenges or any difficulties?
Yes, for me, absolutely, the main challenge would be the word itself, forgiveness. I have a Catholic imprinting, so the word forgiveness has been deliberately tainted to cause all sorts of reactions. I know because I still face this point sometimes, because when I want to apply self-forgiveness, sometimes I have a back chat like, that's not a sin, that I have to forgive. So there's still the context of sinning and forgiving. And I found that even when I try to share this with other Italian people, there is this huge wall of resistance towards self-forgiveness specifically. So my major challenge was this point. The writing was not a problem. It was the overcoming this idea in my mind that forgiveness is something that people who sinned do. And so, it is a tool that once you accept self-forgiveness, you accept you have sinned. I don't know how to completely lay this out for you, but the concept has so many religious ramifications inside people who have been brainwashed from childhood into a religious belief system that I found this was the biggest obstacle for me to overcome.
So how did you support yourself? What supported you to overcome this?
I wrote about it. I tried to redefine self-forgiveness for myself. I spoke about it with people who had gone through the process before. I asked if I could substitute this word with another word when I was sharing the process with Italian people, for example, and they said yes, which took a huge load off the word itself for me. And I did all these things until the word self-forgiveness stood clearer, but I cannot, I would be dishonest to tell you that it never comes up again. Occasionally I can still feel that on specific points I feel the irritation in connection of this word and something that I want to let go. But it's not the letting go, it is in the word. You know?
And then you understand for yourself that it's a programming or it's an imprinting.
I understand that is an imprinting, so I try maybe to take it from another side to see if the connection is not so strong between the word and another point until I can diffuse the point. So I think everyone will have to find their own ways. I mean, the tools are wonderful, but each one has to customize a way to make them work for themselves.
That's a really cool point, because I was brought up in the exact opposite culture of no religion, and where everything is very like scientific, very skeptical. So I had the opposite reaction to self-forgiveness, which was like, I don't need to forgive myself. What's this? You know? And what I have also found for myself, which is again that point of how it all comes back to you, is that it was actually a resistance to actually forgiving myself. I didn't believe that I could forgive myself. I didn't believe I was allowed to forgive myself. And also because within that point of self-forgiveness, which we'll be talking more about next week, there is that point of no return where the self-responsibility also comes back to you, which I would say is really the essential point. But it's cool what you're saying, how each has to find their own way of doing it, because that's essentially what writing empowers you to do, is that you can change yourself. No one else can do it for you. We can support and we can share how we've done it, but it's actually a true tool of self-empowerment, because you have yourself in your own hands.
Yes.
So, Eleanor, what were you going to say?
I agree, Anna.
Cool. So, do you have any examples of how writing has assisted you to change yourself? Like points in your life, experiences that you've had that you've been able to change through writing?
Yes, absolutely. I had a terrible relationship with my mother. There was always extensive tension. It was very easy for me to get inflamed over one word or comment or suggestion that she would make. And before I met Destiny, I always blamed it on her, meaning that in my mind, she was using the wrong words, the wrong tone, the wrong way to approach me. She was rubbing me the wrong way. And then when I started to write, I wrote extensively about my mother and my relationship with her. I found that I came to a point of diffusing this to such a level that now, if I say something that triggers her, and I become aware that this happens, I can still remain stable. Now there's almost nothing that she can say or do that triggers me in any way. So this was clearly an example of the fact that it was never about her. And when the other thing happens, meaning that she gets triggered about something that maybe I say because she takes it personally or whatever, I am stable enough to not participate in an energy tennis game. You know, I can be the point that stabilizes the moment when she flips and uh, because there is no return of energy on my side, she has the time and the space to consider that she actually overreacted over nothing. So I found that clearing ourselves not only helps and supports ourselves, it supports the people around us as well. It doesn't matter that they walk the same process or that they understand what you're doing, but because you become a point of stability in a crazy world, the people who are not yet in that position to find that stability can be supported by your stability by default.
Yeah, and when you say that energy tennis game, do you mean that conflict that emerged where the one person reacts and then the other person reacts to that
Yeah.
reaction and then it, yeah.
You know, and then you take out your fluffy cushions and you start to hit each other, and it's just reacting is actually never justified. There is no reason why we cannot find a way to stay stable and take responsibility for the reaction that we feel. This as well was one point that was very important for me that I said at the beginning. When you realize that actually nothing, no reaction is created by somebody else outside of you, that is actually the moment when your process speeds up. You know, so you have to be really careful about all the words that you use, like, you know, that person triggered me, or, you know, there are many ways of blaming other people in kind of in a kind of, you know, underhand way, so that is not very clear. You know, it seems like you're taking responsibility, but you're not. And the point that I would stress is there is power in self-responsibility. So it is not about talking about the fact that people have to be self-responsible, like your mother would say to you, you know, you have to become a responsible person. It's just because unless you become responsible for something, meaning unless you admit that you have the response ability about something, then you are not allowed in a way to access the ability to respond to it. Then you're only given things to live out. You know, it's a bit like the world system if you look at it. Why are we managed by other people? Why are we managed by a government of 1%? Because we have not taken responsibility. You know, probably even the people at the top, they even think, oh, you know, those children, they don't know what to do without us. You know, we have to manage the world because they are too stupid to manage themselves. They are too reactive to manage themselves. So it is, you can see it reflected outside as well. So true power lies only where true responsibility for oneself is.
Yeah, and in addition to that, what also happens is that when we blame others, then we also think that they have the responsibility, and so we believe that I cannot change until they change, which is the same in the world system, that the politicians has to change everything that isn't working for me. And also what you were saying about the reactions, because what I see is that throughout in our lives and in our relationships, we tend to take these conflicts, for example, for granted. We don't even think that we would be able to change them. We might not even notice that they are conflicts, that this is just normal, this is just the way of living. And so that is so empowering with walking with destiny, in actually seeing that these conflictual relationships with other people can be stopped and can be changed.
Yes.
So we have a question here from Malin. And she's asking, how have you applied the point of developing self-honesty through writing? What does it mean to see yourself through your words? This is basically what you were talking about now.
Yes. Well, I think that when you say to see yourself through your words, it is what we said before, right? Like if you say that occasion triggered me. I can give you an example that of something that really happened to me a little while ago. So I had a breakup in the relationship and I sulked for a week. I had up and downs in which I felt that it made sense, you know, and everything was fine. But then I had automatic reactions as well to this breakup. And then for a few days I got stuck in a point where I insisted that I was right and he was wrong, and where I saw only his responsibility, and I moved into a sort of self-victimization. And it took me a while to walk out of there. And actually the interesting thing was that I realized that through writing, but not through writing the way we do. One of our friend in the group, she wrote to me, she said, "Hey, Ele, how are you?" And when I poured out what was going on inside of me, at the moment I felt, well, that's it, you know, that's the way things are. But then the day after, because I had written it down, I became aware that actually that's not the way it is, you know, and because we have a buddy system as well, then my buddy was able to support me and make me see, yes, you know, whatever, but there's still your responsibility and you have the power to let it go. And so it was a very interesting process for me. It was the choice between believing that, I mean, I could sell that story to anybody, you know, that I was right and he was wrong. I think that this is the point where you really make the step, the next step into self-honesty. It is not when you sell stories that are not sellable, you know. If you try to tell somebody something that is not believable, it is obvious that you are dishonest. But there are stories as well that you can tell where it is socially acceptable and socially believed that things are in a certain way. So you can really easily get away with that story. So that is the point when you really discover your self-honesty, because yes, you can get away with that story scot-free. You know, it is an absolute sellout. But you actually know the truth, you know that there are other things to this story, because there are many layers to every story that you want to become able to consider, you know. This is, maybe we never considered this, but probably what being a multidimensional being is just being able to see more than one dimension of the same story. You know, it's not flying off in dimensions. Is the ability of seeing more than one dimension to a story, and then the more you see your responsibility, the more you can develop self-honesty. Because honestly, no one is ever right 100% ever, anytime, you know.
This is also why it is so important that we then share our writings. Maybe not the most personal, private points, but points like this that you're discussing now, because obviously the first step is to say, okay, I want to change. I mean, that is what we all start with. I'm not satisfied with my life. Everything is chaotic. I want to change. And then that realization comes that I cannot change if I don't even know myself. Then you start that process of getting to know yourself. Then you realize, okay, but there were so many parts of myself that I didn't even know. I have been lying to myself, and I cannot actually change without taking responsibility and without letting go of all those personalities and opinions and beliefs and everything. So then you're at that point of, and you're writing and it's working. But as you were saying, there are so many lies. There are so many, you can still, you know, convince yourself that Yeah, I was right and he was wrong. It's so easy. So that's why it's so important that we share our writings, which is what we do on the Destiny Forum, that what we do on the 7 Year to Life Journey Facebook page, and of course in the Destiny I Process Lite and in the Destiny I Process Pro course, like Eleonora was talking about, where you actually have a buddy that will check up on you and walk with you and say, hey, look at your own words here. Who are you within this? So, in relation to this point with writing and reading other people's writings, how has that assisted you to read the blogs of others?
Yes, I do. Again, a suggestion for me would be that you have to pair up with people who are walking either similar things to the ones you're walking, maybe people who come from your same cultures, because they will have to face same cultural points. I found that this was more eye-opening for me. You know, for example, if I found somebody who wrote about problems with Catholicism or mother-daughter relationship, which is similar in every culture but not the same, you know, maybe the Latins have a different way of processing relationship with their family. So look for topics that you are either facing or you're planning to face. See how others have addressed them. You can get a lot of insights from others. Skip the ones that are doing things that they are either at the point of such refinement, you know, like writing a whole blog about my little pinky nail. So they are either refining at a point where you are not there yet, because, you know, you still want to scream at your neighbor, so you have more urgent, pressing problems to address. And just guide yourself with what you are facing or you see that you need to face for support. My point is as well, I don't read all the blogs, I don't have time. I know the people from whom, when I read blogs, I had self-realizations, and people from whom I don't get so many realization, not because their writing is not valid in absolutely any way, but because maybe we are not in the same point. You know, maybe I am behind compared to a point they are working with. So this again is another very subjective point. Absolutely, blogs are supportive. Absolutely do not overwhelm yourself with words that have no relation to yourself in the moment, because we have enough to do, each one of us, to walk their own process.
This is such a cool point that you're opening up here. And I would say that in addition to that, then obviously also don't. Because obviously what you found through reading a lot of blogs. And so you start seeing, okay, now she's facing that point again. Aha, okay, that's like me. So I wouldn't suggest starting a process of screening before you know, read all of it, look at all of it, find out what matches. I completely agree with you. There are simply people who are walking similar, or it could be age also. I found some of the people who are on my age also walk similar points, which is fine.
Exactly, Anna.
But there could also be people from completely different cultures who might have a similar mind structure as I do.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I say beyond judgment, because it's not a point of judgment, it's a point of self-support. To align yourself with the people that you feel they are digging into points that you want to dig into, or you have been digging into, or you are planning to dig into, so that you keep as well the reading of other people's blogs, how can I say,
specific,
confined to the point that you are working with, so that you don't get yourself spread into so many directions.
But this is such a cool point. I think that this is a very important point, because then it's also just like you are specific in your own writings, that you sit down with a specific aim of I'm here to support myself to become self-honest, you can do the same with reading other people's blogs.
Yes.
And you know what is so cool? We have written blogs about
Everything, Anna.
From relationships to colors to animals to the world
Everything.
system, everything.
Yes.
So whatever you're facing, I'm sure you will be able to find a blog about it, or you'll have to be the one that writes it and shares it, and someone else will be supported by
Yes,
it.
I agree.
And then also, I would also say to utilize the way that others write, to expand your own way of writing. But then at the same time, you don't have to copy it. You don't like it was really cool what you were saying, Eleanor, about if someone is writing something that is in a way too advanced or too refined for where you are in your process. Don't compare yourself to them or now try and, okay, I also have to be like that. Because if you're facing this point of wanting to scream at your neighbor, then that is the most important point for you right now.
Yeah.
Because I walked this process, especially in the beginning, where I had to bring myself back to basics. Because I was writing these beautiful, abstract, advanced things that weren't, it didn't do anything. And I had to, like, get back to,
Yes.
The basics.
Yeah, get back to the things that are really irritating you.
Yes.
You know? Not the one that will irritate you when you will be in the 7th dimension, because you are here.
Or the things where you're like, oh my God, this person, right? I want to be like them because, like Eleanor was saying, you have your own unique process. So structure your reading and your writing after that. Very cool point. So we have a question from Andres, and he's asking, what can you say about the resistances that appear when we try to write about ourselves? Very cool point, Andres. A good question, because this is something that we all face, and it's very, it's very normal. Everyone faces resistance.
Yes, I have not addressed this point in the same way all the times, so I cannot give a formula to anyone. Sometimes I have been pushing myself to write about a point. Sometimes I have been deliberately taking my mind completely off of all the noise by doing something else, like educating myself about something, delving into a specific topic. I found that both ways can give you clarity, so again, personally, I don't like rigid formulas about anything. So if you find that pushing yourself through a point, it is a point of self-honesty again. Self-honestly, sometimes you can say, no, I see that I really need to sit down and push myself to do this. Or sometimes you can say, no, there is too much going on at the moment in my life. What I will do is I will take this kettle and just put it on the side for a second, do something else, allow all this smoke to settle for a moment, and then I will sit down and write. I found both approaches worked for me. So I think that resistance to certain points is for sure showing that either now or once you have allowed the point to fester enough that you now really want to write about it, both ways work. So you only have to decide which way to go through your own self-honesty. But again, to not make a problem about it, because there is the risk, for me, this is one risk that I faced, that you will immediately start to bash yourself about something because you have created a recipe that is too strict and now you have to adhere to the recipe. Otherwise, you immediately go into, some sort of, oh my God. So I found that this was not working for me. So I have stopped giving myself all these, even I'm careful as well of how I structure my commitments, because commitments that are impossible it's useless to write them, you know.
Like
Like
saying, now I'm going to write.
I commit myself to bringing world peace in the next 2 hours. I mean, you
Or
know,
I'm
so
going to write every day, and every writing is going to be amazing.
yes, and I'm gonna write every day at 17:41, no fail, and then you fail. So there must be an elasticity that allows you to live.
Yeah.
So you have to create structure for you, but not structure so tight that you become paralyzed by the structure.
Yeah, I actually faced this point once where I was also supported by my buddy in the DIP course, because I had created an idea about who I was supposed to be in writing and what I was supposed to, like, I'm supposed to, and this is actually where I brought it back to basics, because I had created this idea that I'm supposed to write these advanced, I'm supposed to transform myself and transcend, and so when I was sitting down, I was having all this pressure and anxiety and expectations to myself that I couldn't live up to. And eventually, my body assisted me to see, hey, how about letting go of all of that and simply allowing yourself to write? And then, like you were saying, Eleonora, I also see that you cannot give a formula that works for everybody every time. You'll have to be flexible. Another thing that I also faced was when I was in a very deep state of depression where I didn't write for like 6 months, where I couldn't even touch the keyboard. There, what assisted me was to really push myself and to say, okay, I'm going to write about concrete, physical, practical things. Because I was trying in my writings to sort this entire deep, depressed, horrible thing, and I wanted to sort it all out at once. And it was all this existential, mumbo jumbo, and it just wasn't working. So I had to get back to, today I had a reaction. I got angry. This is what happened. This is the thoughts I had. So I would write, and then I would apply self-forgiveness, and then I would write self-corrective statements, and that's it. So
Yes.
that is something that I would suggest if you have a similar experience, to just let go of the expectations. Don't try and copy anyone else. That's really what assisted me, is that this is my moment to be here with myself. So definitely.
Agree.
Yeah. Is there any other tips that you have, Eleonora, besides what we've mentioned already, to anyone who just started writing or who's curious about starting?
Well, the best tip that they gave to me that worked for me was to really take one point at a time. I give the same suggestion to other people on the forums, mainly because when I read other people's posts, sometimes I see that if you don't really take this point apart, the point you are working with, what the mind will tend to do is it will offer you exit doors through the impression that you are expanding the point, when in fact you are not. You have just taken an exit door to another room, but the room you were working with has not been sorted out. So to find that if you take one point, you write about the point, you come to a point where you feel empty about that point. That when you really look left and right, you pull up the carpet, you look underneath, and there's nothing there anymore. Okay, then you think, okay, I'm done with this point. That worked for me really well. So this is actually how I got myself out of my pot addiction. I got myself into a good relationship with my mother. And I'm still working on relationships, obviously, but it was a big, big point in my life. And so I will work through it for sure before I have a next relationship. So I will take some time to look into the relationship point and see all the aspects of it and the things that came up for me. So one point at a time is enough.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we tend to want to, we see something within ourselves, or a pattern, or why do I always get so scared or angry? And then we want to get it out and sort it out immediately. Which tends to become very superficial, or like Eleonora saying, not really diving deep into the actual point. So that point of slowing down, being here with myself, being absolutely specific, and then let's say that you're facing an existential pattern or something that you see you repeated throughout all your life. You don't necessarily have to write about your whole life in one blog
Yeah.
post, but you can have an example. You can use an example of where you experience this pattern coming out, and then through that you can open up the whole pattern. But I would say that if you have any questions about writing, how to utilize writing, go on and ask us on the Destiny forum, and we will
Sure.
do our best to support you there. And also, if you're not yet in the Destiny iProcess Lite course, I would definitely suggest walking that, because it's such a cool platform to learn very specifically how to use these different structures that we've been talking about in this Hangout. So, Eleonora, anything to add here and on the end?
No, I'm fine. Thanks, Anna.
So next week we will be back again, and we will talk more about self-forgiveness and what self-forgiveness is and how you can use self-forgiveness to release troublesome burdens and difficulties in your life, as well as taking responsibility for who you are, and through that transform and change yourself to become a human being that you can trust and that other people can trust. It's quite powerful, so look forward to it. Thanks, Eleonora. See you next week.
Thanks, Anna. Bye bye. Bye bye, all.